The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been accused of treating their upcoming trip to Australia like an ATM. That's a cash machine.
Meghan Markle is facing strong backlash after her Easter post was called creepy, while the royal family quietly gained praise and attention. The contrast has sparked debate across social media, raising questions about image, timing, and intent. Why did this post upset so many people? What made the royal family stand out more? Join us as we break it down. An Easter post that sparked big questions. It started in a very calm and quiet way, almost too calm for something that would soon draw strong reactions. On Easter morning, Meghan Markle shared a small look into her life from Montecito. At first, everything about it seemed gentle and peaceful. The setting looked soft and carefully arranged, with light Easter touches like eggs, soft colors, and a neat, open space. A child stood there holding a small toy, surrounded by these simple details. But as people looked closer, something did not feel quite right. The camera never showed a full face. Instead, it stayed behind the child, focusing only on the back of young Lilibet's head. It gave just a small glimpse, enough to show that the child was there, but not enough to fully reveal her. The way it was filmed felt very controlled. The angles did not seem random. Every part of the image looked planned instead of natural. What seemed like a simple family moment quickly began to attract a different kind of attention. Many people started to question what they were seeing. Some described it as unusual or carefully managed. The concern was not about anything clearly wrong in the image, but about the feeling it created. Viewers noticed that the post showed just enough to make people curious, while still holding something back. This balance between showing and hiding became the main focus of the discussion. It created a sense of distance. Even though it appeared to invite people in, people felt drawn to look closer, but at the same time, they could not fully connect with what they were seeing. This contrast made the image stand out in a way that raised questions. Media observers and commentators pointed out that this approach looked familiar. It did not feel like a simple private family share. Instead, it seemed similar to a known style used in content creation. In this style, only parts are shown on purpose to build interest. By not revealing everything, it encourages people to keep watching, to stay curious, and to think more about what they are seeing. This is where the situation became more complex. If the goal was privacy, some wondered why share the image at all. And if the goal was to share a real family moment, why did it look so carefully arranged? These questions came from the clear difference between the idea of a natural moment and the way the image was presented. For some viewers, this created a sense of contradiction. The image was presented as soft and personal, yet it carried a strong feeling of control. The child was visible, but still hidden. This made the moment feel less open and more managed. It raised the question of whether the focus was on sharing a memory or shaping how that memory would be seen. As more people discussed it, the focus moved beyond the image itself. It became about how people understand what they see online. It raised thoughts about intention, meaning, and whether something is as real as it appears. The image no longer felt like just an Easter post. Instead, it became part of a larger conversation about presentation and perception. In the end, what seemed like a quiet and gentle post led to deeper questions. Was it truly a simple family moment, or was it carefully designed to guide how people would react? When message and action collide. As reactions to the Easter post continued to grow, attention slowly moved away from the image itself and settled on something much harder to understand. The discussion was no longer only about how the moment looked. It became about what it seemed to stand against. While Meghan Markle was sharing carefully selected glimpses of her children with a wide audience, Prince Harry had spent years warning people about the risks connected to that same digital space. His views had always been clear and steady. Over time, he spoke at global gatherings, joined important discussions with experts, and consistently described social media as a system that could affect young people in serious ways. He drew attention to its psychological effects, its addictive nature, and its quiet ability to influence behavior. These were not always easy changes to see, but they were deeply felt. Through these efforts, he built an image of someone trying to protect the next generation from the hidden costs of online exposure. This is why the moment felt difficult for many to process. The Easter content was not shared in a private setting or limited to a small group. It appeared on a public platform, reaching people across the world. It became part of a constant flow of digital content designed to capture and hold attention. The way the images were presented also added to the conversation. They showed only parts, used careful angles, and revealed just enough without showing everything. This approach did not seem random. It followed a clear and familiar pattern. Media observers explain this as a curiosity gap. This method gives the audience small pieces instead of a complete view. It creates interest by leaving out key details. It encourages people to wonder, to guess, and to keep watching for what might come next. This style is often used in digital storytelling and online content created to keep people engaged over time. At this point, the tension became more noticeable. For some supporters, there was an important difference to consider. They believed that sharing controlled moments of family life was not the same as exposing children to the unpredictable nature of the internet. They explained that parents have always shared parts of their lives with others, and that this could simply be seen as a modern version of that behavior. When viewed on its own, this idea made sense. However, others saw the situation differently. Critics focused on the size of the audience, the careful structure of the content, and the setting in which it was shared. This was not a private exchange between close friends or family members. It was a public platform followed by millions of people, where every post carried a larger meaning. In that environment, the presence of the children went beyond a simple family moment. They became part of a wider public image, one that blended personal life with public storytelling. This is where the real tension settled. The issue was no longer about whether the post was acceptable or easy to understand. The deeper question was whether it matched the strong principles that had been shared before. As people began to notice the gap between those earlier messages and this present action, the way the moment was viewed started to change. It was no longer seen as a single, isolated post. Instead, it became part of a bigger and ongoing story. A simple Easter update turned into something that revealed more than expected. It showed how quickly attention can shift when actions appear to move in a different direction from firmly stated beliefs. This shift in perception raised a quiet but important question. When public words and personal actions do not fully align, what does that reveal beneath the surface? And could this Easter moment be the start of a deeper conversation that is still unfolding? A quiet image that spoke clearly. As the debate surrounding the Montecito post continued to grow stronger, attention did not stay in one place. It slowly and almost naturally shifted across the Atlantic. There, on that same Easter morning in 2026 at Windsor, a very different image was taking shape. It unfolded calmly, without noise, yet it carried a deep and steady presence that could not be ignored. At Windsor, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, arrived at St. George's Chapel with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. There was no grand announcement to draw attention to their arrival. Nothing was presented as unusual or extraordinary. Still, the moment held a quiet strength that needed no explanation. 5 figures walked together with calm and confidence, moving toward a place filled with royal history. Their steps were steady and natural. The scene did not feel arranged or forced. Instead, it followed a rhythm that had existed long before them. This sense of continuity gave the moment its depth. It was not about creating an impression. It was about continuing a tradition that already had meaning. The children stood out in a gentle but powerful way. They showed a quiet awareness that was easy to notice. They did not appear overwhelmed or unsure. Instead, they carried themselves with calm understanding. It felt as though they knew what the moment required without needing guidance. Their presence added a layer of meaning, showing a gradual step into roles they would one day carry forward. What made the scene so striking was its simplicity. There was no visible effort to control how it would be seen. Nothing appeared over-arranged or carefully shaped. It was just a family standing together in full view, connected not only to each other, but also to something much greater. That simplicity became its greatest strength. By the next morning, the impact of that image was clear. It appeared across the front pages of major British newspapers. Different publications used different headlines, yet they all showed the same photograph. Again and again, the same image was chosen. It did not compete with others, it replaced them. It quietly became the defining picture of the day. The message within that image was simple and direct. It showed the future of the monarchy as visible, united, and stable. At a time when questions surrounded the institution from many sides, this single image seemed to offer a clear response. It did not speak loudly, but it communicated strongly. It showed a sense of order that felt real, not created. The presence of the children made this moment even more meaningful. They were not hidden or partly shown. They were fully present, taking part in a tradition that had been passed down through generations. Their role did not feel like exposure. Instead, it felt like careful preparation. It showed a slow and steady introduction into responsibilities they would one day hold. This is where the contrast became very clear. On one side, there was an image made up of fragments, controlled views, and partial moments that invited people to question and interpret. On the other side, there was a complete and open picture, direct and grounded in something established over time. One asked people to search for meaning, the other gave them something clear to understand. As people looked at both images, the difference became sharper with time. It was no longer about which image looked better. It became about what each image truly represented. This was not simply about being seen, it was about the meaning behind what was shown. One image created curiosity, but also left room for doubt. The other provided direction, showing clearly where the institution stood and who would lead it forward. As this contrast became more visible, attention did not wander. It settled firmly on Windsor, where the message had already been delivered with calm confidence. In the end, visibility was only the surface, a quiet question that would not settle. As the image from Windsor continued to settle gently in the public mind, the earlier post from Montecito began to carry a different kind of weight. What had first appeared unusual slowly shifted into something that felt more difficult to understand. The attention returned to the same quiet frame shared by Meghan Markle, but this time, people looked at it with greater care. The focus was no longer only on what the image showed, but also on what it seemed to suggest beneath the surface. Yet the scene itself remained unchanged. A child stood alone, seen only from behind, holding a small toy in a wide and carefully arranged space. There were no other children nearby. There were no visible signs of interaction. There was no sense of movement or shared activity. Everything appeared still, almost too still, and that stillness began to stand out in a way that was hard to ignore. The reaction gradually shifted. It was no longer driven only by criticism. Instead, it moved into something quieter and more thoughtful. A gentle but growing sense of discomfort began to form. This feeling did not arrive suddenly. It developed slowly as people spent more time with the image and allowed its details to settle in their minds. When placed beside the images from Windsor, the difference became more than just visual. It became emotional. At Windsor, the children of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, were seen stepping into a public setting. They were surrounded by people and were part of a shared moment that connected them to a wider world. Their presence felt active and engaged. They were clearly part of a structured environment that balanced visibility with purpose. Their role within that setting carried meaning that extended beyond the frame itself. In Montecito, the atmosphere felt entirely different. The child in the image appeared separate from everything else. The space around her felt open and distant. There was no visible connection to others. The setting, although peaceful and calm, did not carry the same sense of warmth that comes from interaction. What may have been intended to reflect freedom and quiet comfort began to appear from another perspective, more like a form of separation. This contrast did not need long explanations. It was something that could be felt almost immediately. With that feeling came a deeper question that stayed in the background. What was the image trying to communicate? Was it meant to show a private and protected childhood, carefully kept away from public pressure? Or was it presenting a version of life that did not fully match what people expected to see? As more attention was given to the image, the answer did not become clearer. Instead, it became more uncertain. The message seemed to exist somewhere between intention and perception. What may have been designed as a soft and controlled glimpse into family life began to be interpreted in ways that were less certain and more open to question. The absence of visible connection became more noticeable. The careful framing drew attention. The decision to reveal only part of the moment, while keeping other parts hidden, added to a growing sense that something was not fully present. This feeling was not based on what could be clearly seen. It was based on what could be felt. Something seemed to be missing, not in a physical way, but in an emotional one. As that feeling continued to develop, the meaning of the image began to shift. It was no longer seen simply as a moment captured on Easter morning. It began to feel like a reflection of something more complex, something that had not yet fully revealed itself. The image, quiet and carefully composed, started to feel incomplete in a way that was difficult to explain. a moment that was designed to bring comfort began to leave behind a sense of distance. The calm atmosphere, instead of feeling warm, carried a slight sense of unease. The question remained steady. Why would an image created to feel gentle and reassuring leave such a quiet feeling of separation? As these thoughts continued to settle, another piece of content appeared, adding a new layer to the situation. This time, it was not a still image, but a video. Prince Harry was seen skiing with his son Archie. They moved across snowy slopes in what looked like a relaxed and enjoyable moment. On the surface, it seemed simple and easy to understand. A father and son spending time together during a holiday, continuing the same Easter theme that had already been introduced. At first, the video felt warm and natural. It showed movement, activity, and a shared experience. It appeared to offer a more complete picture of family life. However, as with the earlier image, the details did not settle as easily as they first seemed. The video suggested a family trip. It appeared to show a shared experience that was both joyful and connected. Yet, almost at the same time, another image began to circulate. This photograph showed Prince Harry on the slopes again, but in this frame, he was alongside Princess Eugenie. The setting looked the same. The timing appeared to match. However, the composition of the image told a different story. In that photograph, there was no sign of Meghan. This absence did not go unnoticed. It introduced a quiet but steady question that began to grow. If the skiing video was meant to present a family holiday, then how did each part of the story fit together? Were all these moments happening at the same time, or were they separate moments, brought together in a way that created a single and more complete perspective? As people looked more closely, it became harder to place each piece with certainty. The timeline did not feel entirely clear. The connection between the different images and clips did not fully settle into a simple explanation. Instead, it remained slightly uncertain. Observers began to note that this was not the first time such questions had appeared. There had been earlier moments where what was presented publicly did not fully match what could be independently seen or understood. The difference between appearance and reality had been noticed before, and now it seemed to be appearing again. The skiing video itself was not unusual. Moments like this are often shared by families. They are simple, natural, and easy to understand when viewed on their own. However, in this situation, the video was not being viewed in isolation. It was being considered as part of a wider pattern that had already begun to draw attention. This pattern suggested that images and videos might be carefully selected, arranged, and shared in a way that shaped how they were seen. Instead of simply reflecting reality, they appeared to guide perception in a certain direction. This idea did not bring clear answers, but it added to the growing sense of uncertainty. The feeling of unease began to deepen, not because of any single detail, but because of how all the pieces came together. If the Easter post had raised questions about attention, this new footage raised questions about consistency. The details did not fully connect. The timeline remained unclear. The absence of certain elements, especially Meghan's presence in specific moments, did not provide clarity. Instead, it added another layer of uncertainty. What began to emerge was not a clear contradiction. It was something softer and more difficult to define. It was the sense that what was being shown might not represent the full picture. The moments shared appeared to create a certain feeling, even if the complete reality behind them was more complex. As these layers continued to build, the situation moved further away from a simple holiday story. It became something more detailed and more intricate. Each new detail did not close the gap between understanding and uncertainty. Instead, it widened that gap slightly, allowing the questions to remain present. There was no single moment that confirmed anything. There was no clear answer that resolved the growing sense of distance. Instead, there was a quiet and steady awareness that something did not fully align. The more closely everything was observed, the more that gap seemed to remain. This left one final question gently resting beneath everything else. Was this a carefully shaped version of reality? Or was it a deeper story that had not yet been fully seen, quietly revealing itself through small and subtle details? The focus behind the Windsor Easter gathering. As questions surrounding the Sussex perspective continued to grow, attention began to move once again. This time, the focus turned towards something less visible but far more important. Behind the polished and carefully presented images of Easter Sunday at Windsor, another layer of meaning began to emerge. It was not captured in a single frame, and it did not appear in one clear moment. Instead, it revealed itself through what was missing. the absence of certain familiar faces became noticeable almost at once. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, along with the wider York family, were not present at the Easter service at St. George's Chapel in the year 2026. This detail did not feel small or unimportant. In earlier years, they had been part of these gatherings, appearing alongside other members of the royal family. Their absence created a clear gap, one that naturally led to quiet reflection and careful observation. At the center of this shift were two very different approaches to leadership. King Charles III, now fully carrying the responsibilities of the crown, had long been known for valuing family unity. His approach often leaned toward inclusion. He placed importance on maintaining personal connections, even during difficult times. For him, relationships were deeply tied to history, and that history carried lasting meaning. Alongside this perspective stood another approach, more defined and more focused. Prince William had begun shaping a vision that placed the institution itself at the center, above individual relationships. His direction appeared clear and steady. The long-term image of the monarchy needed to be protected, even if that meant making decisions that felt personally difficult. This approach showed a careful balance between duty and emotion, but with a stronger emphasis on responsibility to the institution. The absence of the York family at Easter began to appear less like coincidence and more like the result of this quiet difference in outlook. From William's perspective, the association between the York family and the ongoing controversies connected to Prince Andrew carried risks that could not be ignored. Protecting the reputation of the monarchy required firm and thoughtful boundaries. This was not presented as a personal judgment, but rather as a necessary step for long-term stability. For King Charles, the situation seemed more layered and delicate. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie were not defined only by their father's circumstances. They had created their own paths, built their own families, and developed their own identities within public life. Excluding them completely risked creating another kind of imbalance. It could weaken the sense of family connection that he had worked for many years to maintain. This difference in perspective did not need to be openly discussed. It became visible through actions rather than words. It showed itself in attendance, in presence, and in absence. Who appeared and who did not became part of a larger message. This is what gave the Windsor image a deeper sense of meaning. While the Sussex perspective continued to raise questions about presentation and consistency, the scene at Windsor offered something different. It reflected clarity. The group that appeared was smaller and more focused. There was no sense of uncertainty in the arrangement. Each person present had a clear role, and every appearance felt intentional. This was not simply a family gathering on the way to a chapel. It became a quiet statement about direction. It showed how the monarchy was being shaped in real time, not through announcements, but through visible choices. The simplicity of the moment carried a deeper message about structure and purpose. As the gap between these two approaches continued to grow beneath the surface, the carefully composed image of Easter Sunday began to carry more weight. It was no longer just about tradition or routine. It reflected decisions that were being made with care. It suggested that lines were being drawn, even if they were not openly explained. The image itself remained calm and composed, but its meaning reached further. It represented a future that was slowly taking form, even while much of the story remained just out of sight. What appeared to be a simple walk held a deeper significance. Beneath the surface, something more decisive was unfolding. One image offered a sense of certainty. Another raised quiet questions. As these subtle decisions continue to shape the path ahead, the balance within the monarchy appears to be shifting. The changes are not loud or dramatic, but they are steady and meaningful, guiding the institution toward what comes next. A shift in attention. As deeper tensions within the royal structure continued to form, attention slowly returned to Montecito. A new question began to rise. It was no longer only about what was being shared. It became about how those posts were being received and whether they were achieving their purpose. When Meghan Markle returned to Instagram, the expectation was very clear. It was meant to signal a new phase. It offered a direct link to a global audience and created space for a broader lifestyle identity, while still holding on to a sense of personal truth. That return carried strong anticipation. Many expected high engagement, steady growth, and a clear message that would connect everything. However, the response showed something more complex. Even with millions of followers, the level of interaction did not match the size of the audience. The numbers did not show the kind of progress that usually supports a growing brand. Engagement felt uneven. Some posts attracted attention, while others passed with little impact. The steady pattern that helps build trust over time did not fully appear. Part of this challenge seemed to come from the content itself. At certain moments, the account felt personal. It showed quiet scenes, small family glimpses, and carefully arranged images that suggested closeness. At other times, the tone shifted. It became more structured and more focused on branding and promotion. This movement between two styles created uncertainty. It was not always clear if the audience was being welcomed into a private moment or being shown a carefully shaped message meant to maintain visibility. This lack of clarity began to shape how the content was understood. The Easter post became a strong example of this. It appeared as a simple family moment, but the controlled framing gave it a more deliberate feel. The skiing footage followed a similar path. It was presented as a natural holiday experience, yet it raised questions about timing, presence, and continuity. Each post on its own might have been easily accepted. Together, they created a pattern that was difficult to ignore. That pattern began to influence public perception. While this content continued to raise questions, the image from Windsor remained clear and steady. Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, appeared with their children in a way that needed no explanation. The message was simple and direct. It showed unity, structure, and a clear sense of purpose. There was no confusion in what was presented. This difference became very clear. One approach invited the audience to interpret and fill in missing details. The other delivered a complete picture with little room for doubt. In a space where public attention moves quickly and opinions form in moments, clarity holds strong value. What began as a comparison between two Easter images grew into something much larger. It became a reflection of two very different ways of communicating, managing visibility, and maintaining control. One approach relied on suggestion and limited access. The other was built on openness and consistency. As these two paths continued side by side, the balance between them seemed to shift in a way that was becoming harder to change. This raises an important question. What did this Easter truly reveal? Was Meghan's post a planned move that did not land as expected? Or does it show that the royal family has already taken control of the perspective?